Hey everybody, it's Rob here. We just got the full mid-season patch notes, and there are actually a lot of good surprises in here. And we're going to talk about it in the video. I'm going to link those below. We're going to look at them on Wowhead here because we have embeds. First of all, they fixed an issue where the glyph upgrade chance did not properly scale past pit 100. So that means we can run pit 150 and we can actually upgrade our glyphs. Then another very cool change that I want to highlight here is that no change option is now the default select option when you enchant an item. So you don't have to tediously click all the time anymore. I'm still hoping that we're going to see this to tempering. Obviously, they changed the Legion events, and we have a ton of unpredicted changes here to the to all the classes. So they actually did fix Bold Chieftain, and they buffed the Bold Chieftain for the Barbarian specifically, now scaling up to 70% cooldown reduction, and we have a ton of more upgrades in general. So let's go through them, starting at the top here. There's actually a lot more stuff than it seemed like after the mid-season chat. So they buffed a ton of runes here. This is like minor buffs to a ton of like underused runes. For example, Vex duration is increased. Pretty cool. They buffed a ton of the mercenary stuff here. I'm probably still going to use Subo, but for example, the shield throw got buffed, where you taunt longer and you get your damage buffs longer. They also did buff some of the stuff here on Variana, where it like actually lasts longer. I'm looking here with the embed, so that's pretty cool. We have Subo buffs on top of this. This is like not crazy significant, but still some nice additions here. Then obviously we have the Spiritborn buffs, and they did in fact buffed the Toxic Skin, they buffed Soar, they buffed Razor Wings, they even buffed the Rushing Claw. So the reverse flash build with Toxic Skin and with Rushing Claw is going to be eating very good. They also buffed the Devourer ultimate here now to scale damage on the Toxic Globs and the Pestilence Swarm. They also buffed Intigracy, which is basically free cooldown cast. This is going to buff the Razor Wing build a lot more. I definitely want to try Razor Wings. It's going to look fantastic. And they did buff Nourishment passive from the Spiritborn, so even more poison damage, even better for poison builds now, going up by 3% at the end here. They buffed the key passive Adaptive Stance, and they buffed a ton of the underused legendaries here, mostly defensive ones, for the Spiritborn. They also did finally buff the Mythic Unique. This buff is not too significant though, but overall they did buff even more Mythic Uniques. You see here the Shattered Vow Mythic Unique got a buff, and this might actually finally be good for dot builds, because now instead of just giving health damage or healthy damage, it's giving now damage over time duration. This is, you might know it from the flavor, this is actually a multiplier to your total damage done from those dots. So this is actually a 44x, I think, multiplier for Shattered Vow, which it's still a two-hander, but it definitely makes it a viable option now, for example, on the Barbarian as one of your weapons to play a Shattered Vow. And also Andariel Poison got buffed quite a lot. They also buffed some of the generic items, Pentient Griefs, Endurance Faith here. They buffed the Bold Chieftain. This is for the Druid and for the Barb, so you don't need a Harlequin's Crest anymore. And you can get up to 70% cooldown reduction just with the Bold Chieftain alone. And also adaptability is now always applied, even if the cast is not coming directly for yourself. The Stormstrike Druid here comes in mind with the great stuff of the Crone. So those auto casts are also being multiplied by adaptability, so ×2 damage there. And then let's start here with the stuff to our beloved class, the Barbarian. I'll probably make a separate video discussing this in more detail, but baseline, guys, Groundstorm got more than a double damage buff. And as you might remember, Groundstorm already has a rune giving it 900% X damage, so that's a 10 times multiplier. And actually we might have a viable Groundstorm build here, because if you take this ×10 with the rune, you're actually dealing 800% weapon damage, just stomping once. That's quite a lot of damage. They also buffed the Strategic Groundstomp. They buffed, as we already know, Hammer of the Ancients. Upheaval got even a bigger buff. It got a Lucky Hit buff as well. And also they buffed all the runes for Upheaval. So Upheaval keeps getting buffed, and it's getting somewhere close where it's actually a viable build. I still think the animation is horrible, but I really want to see it go into the direction of like a snap, like a one big bazooka hit build if you want. Like you do like one big slow hit, but it's gonna like hit for like billions and billions of damage. And the stacks are going up from like 15 to 20%, and they stack up to 10 times now. So you can actually get a triple damage bonus with Furious Upheaval plus base chance increased. They also buff Double Swing, they also buffed Rend, but like we mentioned in previous videos, they somehow forgot to buff Whirlwind. And I'm talking like direct Whirlwind damage buffs are missing. We get actually some pretty cool buffs to the passives on the Barb though. So this is in fact gonna buff the Barbarian class and shift all builds up, because we are getting buffs to Blood Rage, which is used in every single build. It goes up to 45%, so 1.45x instead of a 1.3x. That also means we want to stack a lot more berserking damage, and this makes every Barb build stronger as well. And Decimator, which is also pretty much used in every Barb build, also goes up from basically 1.1 to 1.2 and then 1.2 again. So this combined with like most of the buffs that we see for the Barb is actually going to make every Barb build about twice as strong as it is right now. And next to all the core skills, we have the Ground Stomp Barb that might be viable now. We have Leap being buffed significantly. We have Kick going up 5x on the base. Now you have to consider that a Kick is getting most of its damage from the Fury scaling. So it's actually not going to deal 5 times more damage, but the baseline is still pretty good now. They buffed Iron Skin to give you more barrier. They buffed all the runes. They buffed Death Blow twice. They buffed the base. And they also buffed Overkill down here. So Death Blow is getting double buff by itself, and then another 2 buffs from Blood Rage and Decimator. So pretty cool stuff. And they also buffed Rupture. They buffed Steel Grasp. And surprisingly, they also buffed Mighty Throw. So Mighty Throw is already one of the top builds. We didn't see any bug fixes for any of the snapshotting stuff. And if you're looking at a Mighty Throw here, there is basically 2 changes. So we're getting a 50% damage buff on the base rune and on the pulse, but they are fixing a bug with the tempering. And what the tempering did before is always made your Mighty Throw deal double damage. This has been fixed now, and we got a compensatory buff. Holy word. And this also means that if you actually already have a Mighty Throw temper, you actually still getting a 50% damage buff, right? Because the base rune is buffed, and if you have a triple crit on your double damage temper, Mighty Throw is actually going up 50% damage, plus Blood Rage, plus Decimator. So we are seeing like a 4 to 5 pit increase for the Mighty Throw Barb. That's going to be pretty cool. And then there are other cool buffs here. Heavy Handed is getting a buff. Pit Fighter is getting a buff. No Mercy is getting a generic crit chance buff. And we get the Battle Mate being a generic multiplier. We also get some more buffs to Upheaval again. So overall, I think most of the Barb builds, again, are going to end up doing double damage of what they are doing right now. And some even more. We have Twin Strike buffs. We have Tusk Helm going up to 25. We have Gore. So this is like an indirect buff to Whirlwind, but Gore's is still not really viable because you can only load it up 2 seconds, and base damage of Whirlwind still needs like an extra 0 or something to be viable. But yeah, we got some cool buffs here. Red Furore, also another buff. Like this is like the 5th buff to Death Blow. It goes up to 80% X. 100,000 steps goes up. And the ICD goes down significantly. I think they should just remove the ICD completely here, but we're not there yet. Fields of Crimson, and yeah, these are all some juicy buffs. I'm probably going to make a dedicated video about the Barb changes, because there are a lot, and we're going to calculate the multiplier for every build. But it definitely looks pretty cool for the Barb, and definitely more than what I was left with after the dev stream, because they actually buffed a ton of stuff here. Same for the Druid, actually. Like, Druid got buffs throughout the board, especially Tornado are going to be very strong. And then I also think a lot of generic stuff got buffed. They buffed all the key passives. This was what I was missing on Barb a bit. But they buffed all the Druid key passives. Plus, they buffed almost all the boons. And look at some of these buffs. Like, for example, here, the crit damage bonus goes up to 1.4x. The life goes up to 1.3x. A ton of cool buffs. They did buff the Pulverized Druid like quite a bit. Basically, another 50% on the damage here. The Storm Chaser aspect. And I think Druids here throughout the board and Barbs got some very needed and very cool buffs. And there might be even a complete new build here with this ancestral unique ring here that is scaling damage based on your willpower. And the thing is, you can get, nowadays you can get willpower on the amulet percentage. You have willpower here with a greater affix. You can probably get easily 5,000 willpower. And if you're getting a 10% damage bonus for every 1 point of willpower at 5,000 willpower, you're actually getting a 50,000 damage multiplier here whenever you're casting ultimate skills. And there might be even some complete new builds completely revolving around this proc now, because it essentially got 5x from 2% to 10%. That's a big buff. And if you can spam your ultimate, such as Petrify, for example, if you can reset it fast, and there are multiple ways to reset it, maybe that's actually a viable build. So really looking forward to that. A ton of more buffs here. For the Necromancer, surprisingly, they buffed a lot of the skills, but they also buffed passives for the Bone skill tag. So Bone Spear and Bone Spirit, which is already, Bone Spirit is already the strongest build, is going to get even stronger. They're buffing Evulsion, they're buffing Compound Fracture. This is going to go up quite a lot. And they're also buffing some of the underlying uniques here. On Rogue, there's a ton of base buffs and core buffs, as well as Penetrating Shot gets this interesting new line. We don't know exactly what it means, but basically Advanced Penetrating Shot. When cast with full energy, Pen Shot will slow all enemies. It hits for 50% for 3 seconds. Elite enemies will take 50x increased damage. So we don't know exactly what this means, but if this is a debuff, on the monster, that's going to be pretty insane. Like if this is literally like a debuff on the monster, and maybe it even works in party, like as long as they are knocked down, they just take 50% X increased damage. That might be pretty wild. Like we don't know exactly. Let me know in the comments what you think this will mean. We'll see on Tuesday. The patch is coming out next week on Tuesday, guys. But that is a pretty significant buff. If this works in party, I think Rogue's eating good. Very good. I mean, I'm just considering like Rogue plus Spiritborn then, because the Spiritborn on this extra damage will triple dip, right? It will triple dip, so this 50% becomes, like if we're talking a Spiritborn, it becomes 1.5 times 1.5. This is base plus Jaguar main hall, and then plus the Fell, the Soothsayer. It actually is a triple damage buff for Spiritborn, so I don't know if it's going to work like that, but if it will, if this is a debuff on the monster, Spiritborn Rogue party is going to go insane. And yeah, a ton of more stuff here, Dance of Knives, and also a ton of passives. This is like surprisingly actually, the Exploit, which was like +2 to Exploit, Rogue only, was already one of the strongest passives in the game, is getting even more damage buffs. I mean, every Rogue already wanted Exploit on the amulet, and maybe a Frigid Finesse, Exploit, like Malice, those were the strongest ones. Well, and now Exploit is getting a 24x multiplier. That's going to be pretty wild. Victimize and all the key passives scaling are going to get a ton of buffs too. So I think that's really looking cool for the Rogue. Paragon is also getting a buff. Blade Dancer here for the Twisting Blades is getting a buff. Ton of Legendaries are getting a buff. Really cool. And then on the Sorcerer here, there is Meteor. Meteor has been very underused, but now it got some significant buffs here. They increased the damage of Meteor, they increased the runes of Meteor, they increased the combustion passive, and they also changed the Starfall Coronate now to have just a 3-second cooldown and 3 charges. Plus they buffed some of the synergizing glyphs here. This is, I think, the only Paragon glyph changes that we see, but really strong. And we also have a ton more buffs here to Hydra, Incinerate, and also to the Avalanche that we already saw, making like cold builds scale with vulnerable damage, similar to Victimize. We'll see how strong this is going to be. I don't think it's going to be like very, very crazy, but it's definitely going to be a welcome scaling to some of those cold builds to make them a bit more stronger here. And overall, when I saw the campfire chat a few days ago, I thought Sorc got the most changes. Sorc definitely got some cool stuff, but I think compared to at least some of the other classes like Druid or Barbarian, Sorc changes seem a little bit more on the underwhelming side for me. I don't really think it's going to be like changing much. While on Druid and on Barb, for example, it feels really good what they did. There's actually a ton of stuff here. I mean, even though Mighty Throw, for example, is still going to be the best build, with various snapshots, there's no fixes for any of those snapshots as far as we can tell. But yeah, they are buffing the Legion events as some of the generic stuff. They are buffing the Artillery, Blast Wave, and Conduit Shrines. Malignant Heart's gonna cost less X to craft. Very cool. A ton of bug fixes here. Very nice. We talked about the Glyph XP. We talked about this one. Bolt's Chieftain finally fixed. So it's gonna work all the time, guys. Shred's getting some bug fixes here. Like a ton of bug fixes for most of the other classes. Again, this one here is a big one. You can level your glyphs now in Pit 150 at 100% chance, and you're probably gonna be able to skip all of these upgrades. So if you don't have your Paragon glyphs on level 100 yet, just grab a couple of Quill Volley one-shot Spiritborns and just blast some 150s with your friends, or maybe even alone, and you can level your glyphs in no time. It's going to make it extremely easy. They also fixed some issue that everybody gets the achievement in 150. That's very cool. And then, yeah, a ton of more miscellaneous stuff. But there is a couple of things that are missing in this patch notes. And these are some of the bugs. Like, if you look for dupes. Now, I did hear they did fix some dupe methods, but we've talked about the dupe methods a couple of times here on the channel, and about the problem that the dupes pose. And we don't see any fixes, at least not in this patch notes, to any of the duplication exploits. In fact, I had some people in China like show off like this stuff here. Like, they actually found a way now to also duplicate. This is a screenshot that I received today. And this is just a fresh one, like fresh out of the printer. And this is literally a printer, because this guy, he can apparently dupe Uber Uniques. And with the Uber Unique dupes, obviously they have infinite. This guy has 1,000 resplendent sparks. And obviously, he also has perfect Ubers, right? Because if you have resplendent sparks, you can just craft Ubers infinitely. And you can also salvage these Ubers for infinite rawhide, infinite like crafting materials, because every Uber that he dupes gives him 200 rawhide, 200 iron chunks, and things like that. And obviously, he's going to be crafting, you know, the perfect 4 out of 4 GA Ubers. And it seems there are like multiple duplication methods. That's like, this one is obviously crazy. It has nothing to do with trading. And he can just basically infinitely like dupe these out. So there are still a lot of problems that the game has. Same goes for the masterworking exploit. We'll see when the patch hits on Tuesday. Maybe it's going to be fixed, but people are still masterworking their items up to like 36 times, I believe, in those top leaderboard ranks. And there also doesn't seem to be any masterworking fix. And also nothing about the snapshots. Like, there's a ton of snapshots that are affecting the game negatively. For example, people on the leaderboards, especially Spiritborns, with the Brilliance passive are snapshotting 200% movement speed permanently to like make some of the top ranks here. I think every of the top players, we've discussed this before, every of the like top ranks here on the fan leaderboards here is using the movement speed snapshot, where they snapshot 200 movement speed and don't need any movement speed on their gear, but still get the full multipliers. They're basically all of them are using the masterworking exploits, and I mean, probably a ton of them are significantly using or benefiting from the duplication exploit and the dupes that are flooding the market. And yeah, gold prices are still a bit outrageous. However, I'm still looking forward to this because there are some pretty cool changes here, especially to the Barbarian. I can't wait to play some more Barbarian and jump into that. I still really hope that they're gonna get a hold of these duplications and all of these like really game-breaking exploits that remain in the game, and a lot of them are in the game for like a couple of seasons now, especially on the duping part. And we hope to see some fixes, but there are actually some cool bug fixes, for example, to this Bolt's Chieftain here. I remember people have been reporting this one for months and months, and they finally fixed it now, so that's very cool. So there is some good developments here, and I hope it's going to continue that route, and we can have a more fair and balanced game going forward. But yeah, that's the patch notes. Let me know what you think below, and be careful out there, guys. If you're trading items, there are a ton of dupes flooding your market. Don't get scammed. Don't get baited into doing some RMT transactions. Most likely those items gonna disappear, or the guy is gonna scam you. It's very dangerous out there, so be careful. Take care, and let's enjoy a cool patch this Tuesday. I'll see you soon, my friends, and next week we're gonna have updates for Season 7. Let's go, GG. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.